As you might have guessed, the Legend of Korra review is taking a little bit longer than I originally expected. So, instead of making something delayed for like weeks on end, I decided to give you guys episode 142 early. It's a little bit different than what I normally do, and I'm going to be making the Legend of Korra review while this one is in editing. I didn't skip episode 141, I'm just doing them out of order. It's not the first time I've done this. I did this before for weird reasons that I barely even remember. Hope this clears up anything. Let's get on with the review. Something has been building for a while now. It started small, and in the beginning, it was easy to ignore. But like a friend slowly getting addicted to drugs, you can only ignore it for so long before it really starts affecting them to the point that you can't exactly recognize them anymore. The entirety of this review is going to be trying to answer one question. Cartoon Network, what happened to you? This is going to be a different kind of review. Back when I started reviewing in 2013, I had some notions about the current animation networks. At that point in time, my ire was mostly on Nickelodeon. And Nickelodeon was horrible at that time. I stand by that. If it wasn't for the endless SpongeBob oversaturation, or banishing The Legend of Korra to the internet, canceling any show that didn't make the SpongeBob standard, or passing over shows like Adventure Time in order to get shows like Fanboy and Chum Chum, there was a lot about Nickelodeon to hate back then. At the same time, Cartoon Network was pretty special, back in around 2010, 2011. Every so often, there'd be a show that got cut short, or some other controversy that would make its way out of their inner chambers. But with shows like Adventure Time, Regular Show, The Amazing World of Gumball, Steven Universe, and Over the Garden Wall, it could be argued that this was the network that led to the current cartoon renaissance of the 2010s. In my opinion, the 2010s is one of the best decades in television animation history. Beyond Cartoon Network, we have Rick and Morty, Star vs. the Forces of Evil, Loud House, BoJack Horseman, Gravity Falls, the Samurai Jack revival, and many, many others, some of which I've talked about and some I've yet to get to. When I think of what sparked this great era of animation, I have to look back specifically to Adventure Time, and how much of a breath of fresh air that specific show was. Adventure Time first aired in 2010, and later on in that year we got Friendship is Magic, Regular Show, Generator Rex, Young Justice, and Avengers Earth Mightiest Heroes. Sure, there was a My Life Me snuck in there, but do you know how much of a whiplash 2010 was compared to 2009? 2009 is one of the worst years in animation television history, period. I went through the Wikipedia list, and looking through it, do you know how many good cartoons that I've seen that aired in the United States that year? 1. Archer is the only good North American cartoon made in 2009. We were stuck with Phineas and Ferb reruns while shows like Len Martin and Fanboy and Chum Chum made their way to Nickelodeon. Mixed in with the Kung Fu Dino Posses and Pixel Pinkies. Things were really, really bad. Fox had the Cleveland Show and Sit Down, Shut Up, proving that Fox was still Fox. And Cartoon Network? The Cartoon Network, television's home for animation, released no new cartoons that year, and instead, they released 5 new live-action television shows. If it wasn't for the, frankly, amazing animated movie scene of 2009, it would have been one of the worst specific years in animation history in its entirety. Immediately after that, though, Cartoon Network got better, and it was getting better and better, while other animation stations lagged. Nickelodeon was rushing to find the next SpongeBob and killing anything that didn't come close. I reviewed many of the shows that came out in this wake, like Breadwinners and Fanboy and Chum Chum. Disney was throwing everything that wasn't a live-action cheesy kidcom to one of its other networks where it died a slow and painful death, and the hub just kinda died. While there was an annoying orange or problem solvers every so often, Cartoon Network stood as the king of quality. Then something happened. Something terrible happened.
Do you like the Teen Titans or the Teen Titans? As I thought.
Makes sense.
I mean, I don't blame him. I mean, animation-wise, there's really no comparison.
I want to state that this video is going to be more than just complaining about Teen Titans Go. I'm only talking about this and talking about it first because it's important to see it in a historical context, and it's kind of an elephant in the room. This isn't even about Teen Titans Go, this review, and the quality of Teen Titans Go specifically doesn't matter. How Cartoon Network has treated Teen Titans Go has been annoying, whether it's their advertisements that state that it's your new favorite show, or the marathons. I will say this, even if something is good, airing the same thing over and over again is bad. I wouldn't want that for my favorite movies or shows ever. Back in the day, Cartoon Network used to have, every Thanksgiving they would marathon The Iron Giant, all day, 24 hours. And I always hated Cartoon Network on Thanksgiving because of this. I love The Iron Giant, but in one day I would want to see that movie maybe once. maybe twice, like 12 hours apart, but I would not want to watch that for 3, 4, the 12 times that they aired it in a row. Remember that drug addiction analogy from the beginning? Teen Titans Go is Cartoon Network's drug, and they've already overdosed twice. Currently, I reviewed 7 episodes of Teen Titans Go, and I got a lot of flack for this because I have the reputation, as much as the entire cartoon reviewing community, whatever you want to call us, is just going on and on about Teen Titans Go. Currently, I have reviewed 7 episodes. 7. That is it. I did the first 2 reviews back to back intentionally. One to critique it as a spin-off, and one to critique it as a show on its own. I waited 4 months to do the 3rd review, another 3 months for the 4th, 6 months, half a year before the 5th review, and then I waited an entire year before doing the show again. This time was for a positive review. And the last review has took another 4 months. And the last time I've talked about Teen Titans Go, as a show on its own, was back in December. That would be 8 months ago. I want to get this out in the open because, if I may, it's hypocritical to say that I talk about Teen Titans Go too much when you compare it to how much it actually gets played. You can't be angry at me for talking about Teen Titans Go too much, and not be angry at Cartoon Network for overplaying it. To put it mildly, they've been getting a little carried away. During the regular show finale, a Teen Titans Go marathon basically surrounded it, and in the end the show went off with little fanfare. And recently, during the premiere of OKKO, we got literally 300 airings of Teen Titans Go episodes in 1 week, or 80% of their total airings. By the way, this is just an aside. Teen Titans Go does not have 300 episodes. They literally did not have the quantity of episodes to meet this demand. And that's even ignoring the fact that they skipped some of the episodes, like the holiday ones. A general rule of thumb is that if you need to start playing reruns to carry you to the end of your sporadic marathon, you're airing the show too much. There really is no way to describe this as other than an addiction and an overdose. In Cartoon Network's 20th anniversary video, they described their cartoons as their family, and I think that's a good analogy. Cartoon Network did the network equivalent of overdosing instead of going to a family member's funeral, and then afterwards they overdosed worse instead of going to the birth of another family member. Cartoon Network has been disrespectful to the cartoons that they have.
Every single Teen Titans Go episode, all weekend long.
Hey, sweetie, when can we watch our show?
When Teen Titans Go is over.
Okay, no worries.
Teen Titans Go, every single episode.
I know that it's tempting to do the same thing over and over again, especially if they get good ratings. But as a creator, you need variety or you will die, or you will want to die. Me personally, sure, I could review only Teen Titans Go episodes from here on out until the show eventually dies. And it will eventually die. It's inevitable. It happens to everything. Even shows that have gone on, like, forever, like The Simpsons. The Simpsons is dead. It's living dead. If I review nothing but Teen Titans Go, I may get more views and whatever, but I couldn't live as a creator knowing that my livelihood depended on one specific show. And the overall quality of what I produce would get worse and worse. Variety is important. Teen Titans Go is a hit now, sure, but trends fade and tastes evolve. The kids that it panders to are growing up. It's been on the air for 4 years now. Sooner or later, the first generation audience of the show is going to be, in its own words, too old for cartoons. Episodes like Return of Slade aren't just insulting. They go against the concepts of longevity. Teen Titans Go is not designed to stick around. Then again, maybe we shouldn't care about Teen Titans Go or anything that happens to it, because Cartoon Network doesn't care about it. They don't care about any of their cartoons, especially Teen Titans Go. Going back to the your new favorite show advertisement, how could that come across as anything but insulting to its general viewers and make Teen Titans Go even more hated than it already was? From interviews, these episodes are made as quickly as possible. From what I understand, the episode script for Serious Business or whatever was written in like a week. As a writer personally, yeah, you can write a script in a week, and it could even be good if you work at it. But doing it consistently, again and again, that's going to catch up to you very fast, and you're going to hit burnout badly. This is why SpongeBob got so bad in seasons 6 and 7. The network was demanding so many new episodes, and they needed to be pushed out quickly. They didn't have time to really think about what they were doing. Look at some of the episodes of Teen Titans Go. Sometimes they make an episode with Scotch tape just rambling over the original show's footage. Keep costs low, forget everything else. And then there's the episodes that insult the critics. At this point, they're just tiring. I could rant, and I have, and there are reviews of me doing that. But I'm just tired of them. The team for Teen Titans Go is able to get away with a lot. Like, more than you'd see in most shows. Yeah, The Simpsons occasionally takes a swipe at Fox. That happens so much as a running gag. But they don't exactly make entire episodes devoted to attacking their viewers, or a viewer's perception of things, and when they get a little bit in that territory with episodes like That 90s Show, they're reprimanded for it by their audiences. What I get from these episodes like The Return of Slade and The Fourth Wall, it just showcases an outstanding level of apathy on the side of the executives. Just make more of it, more quickly. We don't care what you do or how you do it. Just make it cheaply, with identifiable characters that we can sell toys with. I can't wait until Teen Titans goes The Splinter or a Pal for Gary or One Course Meal. It's an inevitability at this point. Even if you had the best writers, the best staff in the world, creators are going to hit burnout sooner or later, and they're going to get worse. Especially when you don't factor quality into the equation.
I think that's what's really cool about Cartoon Network. They're not trying to look at what was successful in the past and then repeat it. They're just looking for things that they think are cool now that have never been done before.
However, much more egregious in this area is the Powerpuff Girls 2016. I get angry and I get really, really shouty in a lot of reviews, and I get flack for that. Sometimes I do go the opposite. If there's any review that I regret being too nice in, it would be 12 Ounce Mouse. But Powerpuff Girls 2016 is up there. I want to take the show, sit it in a chair, and slap it, asking, what the fuck is wrong with you? I reviewed the episode Painbow, an episode more or less about 6-year-olds getting high on ecstasy and then twerking. I had a lot to say about the executives and how they were pushing the show ahead, what they said, what they ignored, and the changes that they required. Powerpuff Girls, as a franchise, has been, for a long time now, a show that's needed a rest. It might be able to come back in a decade or whatever, but we've been oversaturated with it for years. The original Powerpuff Girls went on too long and suffered from seasonal rot, with these terrible episodes about the girls peeling from a sunburn, and another one where they figure out who was wetting the bed. Powerpuff Girls in seasons 5 and 6, it got bad, really bad. During this time, we also had the Powerpuff Girls movie. It was a box office bomb. Whether you like it or not, and it's not perfect, this usually tells the executives that it's a dead franchise. I mean, after, say, the Hey Arnold movie bombed, it took 15 years for Nickelodeon to mention the show again. Years later, we get a short called Dance Pants. It had mediocre reception, critics weren't hostile to it, but they weren't enthusiastic about it either. I don't think even audiences really were. No one really wanted it, and no one was exactly happy to have it around. And all of a sudden, according to Cartoon Network, this show now has an overwhelming demand. This is a claim that they thoroughly pulled from their ass. There are Cartoon Network shows that are well ignored that do have overwhelming demand for what they are. Powerpuff Girls was not one of them. Samurai Jack was one of them. Powerpuff Girls was not. One of the most controversial episodes is called Horn Sweet Horn. A horse wants to become a unicorn, and so Bubbles, who is portrayed as a selfish asshole in this series because, aw, that's adorable. She forces him into a transformation that he really doesn't want, which turns him into a monster. The executives said that this was a metaphor for being trans. The writers had absolutely no intention about this, and they didn't exactly hear this until the backlash had already set in. The episode came across about as well as something tackling a serious issue. They never planned on tackling a serious issue. To say that the backlash was huge is an understatement. The advertising and the backing showed a pure girl power message. These were supposed to be the right ways to do a female protagonist and a girl show. And in the show, they decided to get rid of Miss Bellum, a very smart and very well-written female character. They also removed Miss Keene's breasts because the only sexuality that they could display in the show was the 6-year-olds twerking, and one of them kissing an adult woman. In the episode where they removed Miss Bellum because she was a female stereotype that they didn't like, they added a new character whose whole character revolved around fashion. I guess a female stereotype that they did like. This girl power cartoon had the Powerpuff Girls often disempowered and required them to be saved by everyone, including the dipshit mayor, at least twice. This came out in the era where we had shows like Steven Universe, Friendship is Magic, and Star vs. the Forces of Evil. This is the show that tried to claim the whole girl power message. Powerpuff Girls 2016's entire existence is the epitome saying, maybe you should think this through. Something that, on some level, is a network's job to do. They're supposed to be looking out for their shows and their creators. More or less asking, maybe you should think this through. They're supposed to be concerned with image and making things, at the very least, reflect well upon themselves. After there was an episode of the Powerpuff Girls, young children, grade school children, twerking, that episode was destroyed online, infamously blasted to the point where it's considered one of the most awkward things that had ever appeared in a cartoon. Do you know what happened after that? An episode afterwards, written after all this controversy comes out. It's called Somewhere Over the Swing Set. It's another episode of The Allegro. Do you know what happens in it? Yeah, there's more twerking in it. I wanted to make another Powerpuff Girls review, but quite honestly, this show legitimately makes me uncomfortable in a way that Family Guy only dreams of doing. And I'm like 100% certain that it's entirely by accident because nobody gives a shit what goes on in this show. I don't think that anyone behind Powerpuff Girls 2016 is a bad person. It's just a very strong case of you need to think through your implications. When no one is watching over your work, it tends to get daring. When your work gets daring, it starts to get stupid, or disgusting, or creepy, or aggravating. This is what happened to SpongeBob, for instance. And Cartoon Network doesn't give a shit. All they cared about was getting another Teen Titans Go. Powerpuff Girls 2016 was made to be Teen Titans Go too, just pandering to girls instead of boys. Oh yeah, let's talk about that one. That'll be fun. There's something that I want to say from the bottom of my heart to Cartoon Network as a network. Maybe Cartoon Network, you're not on the page as everyone else, but who knows? Maybe you're a little bit behind or you're on the wrong track entirely and are about to be hit by an oncoming train. I don't know. But I think this is important and it's something that you really need to understand moving forward. Cartoon Network. Cartoon Network. You are not a toy company. I'm sick and tired of hearing these network decisions from you specifically being entirely decided by whether or not something has sold enough toys. Young Justice canceled not because of Teen Titans Go, but because one show sells toys and another doesn't. Tower Prep, while not a cartoon, was canceled because it didn't sell enough toys. Oh, I'm sorry, it was selling toys. 2 girls. But they didn't want that. It's amazing how things change in 5 years. Green Lantern, canceled for toys. Symbionic Titan, canceled for toys. It's sad. It's really sad when Hasbro, a literal toy company, respects their animation as animation more than the Cartoon Network. Whether you like it or hate it, Friendship is Magic is at least respected by Hasbro, as was Littlest Pet Shop. Both shows made to sell toys. Animation is expensive. I understand that. The profits that you reap on its own is very rarely worth the money that you actually have to put into it. For animation to be profitable on its own entirely, it might have to end up looking like 12-ounce Mouse, or something from the 1970s. It's the reason the 1970s was the 1970s. So network wisdom came to the conclusion that toy sales are important to actually make profit off of what you're doing. However, today we have so many other ways of making money off of cartoon shows. We have digital distribution and DVD sales, other forms of merchandising. There is so much you can do. And even beyond that, I want to take you back a couple of decades, to one cartoon in particular. 1987 brings us DuckTales. You might not know this, but DuckTales is actually one of the most important television cartoons ever made. That is not a joke, by the way. It was the first cartoon made from the start to be for syndication. Before DuckTales, when your time was up, that was it. You were off the air forever. Unless you were very inexpensive and a monster hit like, say, Scooby-Doo. Disney went out of their way to make DuckTales as high quality as possible on its own. It wasn't like most of the cartoons of the time. While it was based on an existing franchise, it wasn't made with toy sales in mind, but to survive on its own merits. Even though it did occasionally teach very unique messages, especially for the time, it wasn't made specifically to educate, but to entertain, with characters that both adults and kids could relate to. In 1987, cartoons were either little kids' educational schlock, or complete utter nonsense based on whatever toy is being sold. I couldn't imagine how great DuckTales looked in comparison. Disney had so much riding on this one little thing, premiering it with the television movie, while animation was considered a joke at the time, especially television animation. And it was such a hit, it spurred on future Disney shows like Darkwing Duck, Chip and Dale, and Tailspin. This led to competitors like Nickelodeon with its own hits, Doug, Ren and Stimpy, and Rugrats, which was, profitable enough to really get a network going. And as you might have guessed, another competitor was Cartoon Network, with their line of cartoons. DuckTales, an absurd and insane risk, a show made not with toys directly in mind, helped to spark the television animation renaissance that is fondly remembered to this day. It even has a remake that's coming out that looks like it has a lot of potential, and people who actually, give a shit. We remember DuckTales today. History is not going to look kindly on Teen Titans Go or Powerpuff Girls 2016. But what Cartoon Network is doing with the show, it makes sense from a business perspective, a very, very short-sighted business perspective that doesn't give the slightest inclination to artistic merit. Now, at this point, it's getting to be ancient history, but the tale has gotten sadder here in 2017. Many of Cartoon Network's defining shows of this decade are, or have finally come to an end. Adventure Time, regular show, Gumball will be soon enough. They lost Pokemon because, yeah, well, they honestly should have at this point. Everyone is happy that Samurai Jack went to Adult Swim, because they don't trust Cartoon Network anymore. We Bare Bears? It airs so little that it may as well not even exist. What do they have new? Well, there was Mighty Magiswords, which feels like it was played on fast forward. And then there's this new thing called OKKO. I haven't seen it yet, and to be honest, I'm not exactly excited about it, and it has nothing to do with the show itself. From the reputation of Cartoon Network, I'm expecting it to be another cheap attempt to cash in on lol, random, super fast humor, but there is a chance it'll be good. Cartoon Network still comes out with good stuff every so often, but even in that case, I would still be hesitant to watch it, because in 2 months' time, it's going to be buried by more Teen Titans Go. Other than that, there's another Ben 10 spin-off, which I have seen, and it's fucking horrible. 10 years with so much Ben 10. I get that the original was good, but why so much Ben 10? Why? It wasn't that good. I don't think it even has 10 aliens anymore. So it seems like Cartoon Network doesn't want to do anything except spin-off. Except no, they don't want to do even that. Remember Kids Next Door? The final one of the original cartoons? Well, yeah, its original creator, Tom Warburton, wanted to create a spin-off. The original creator of a show, a property that already existed and people really liked, wanted to make something called The Galactic Kids Next Door, a continuation. There was even this viral marketing campaign over storyboards of the original characters' voices, and it was really something special to behold. Cartoon Network said no. At the same time that they take Powerpuff Girls away from Craig McCracken, make a new show without consulting him at all, and basically butcher it beyond belief. Galactic Kids Next Door had a petition with over 90,000 signatures. Cartoon Network still said no. And of course, Mr. Warburton can't make a spin-off of his own franchise himself, because when you sign up for a network, you tend to have to give up your own intellectual property. You might get lucky if you're a veteran, but it is very rare. To get airtime, you usually have to give up your intellectual property rights. It's not like animation is unique to this. We've all seen plenty of video games and movie franchises get butchered and churned out by studios, but it is just awful to see how many people have to give up what was originally their pride and joy just to be seen by an audience. Luckily, we're in the age of the internet and crowdfunding, and that's starting to change, but we're still getting over the hurdle period. If there is something to take away from all of this, try your damnedest to go independent. It's an absurd risk, but there's also absurd rewards in them hills. From the Powerpuff Girls to Korra to Star Versus to Steven Universe to Kids Next Door, all of these shows have been abused by networks. Business doesn't have to kill art. Like yin and yang, they need to work in harmony for us to get anywhere. When art is abused like this, the business will die sooner or later. And you know what? There are plenty of things that I regret having said. Like a lot of what I said about Adult Swim, for instance. Even with the 12-ounce mouses, and the King Star Kings, and Mr. Pickles, Adult Swim is something that I'm able to respect a lot more than Cartoon Network proper at this point. Adult Swim is something that I respect, because they are like the only place on television that gives a shit about animation creators anymore. And you know what? They seem to be making money, they're loved by their audience, and at this point, they should be their own network entirely, detached from Cartoon Network completely. I don't see why not. I'm not going to say that Cartoon Network needs to die, or it is going to die, but I am going to say that Cartoon Network has never been closer to death's door than it is now. I'm going to say it. This era is worse than the Snyder era. I know that might be controversial, but at least the live-action shows had somewhat of variety. Even cartoons that I didn't like Flapjack. They led to many alumni that have made things like Rick and Morty and Gravity Falls. This October 1st, Cartoon Network turns 25. We're the same age. Cartoon Network has never been in a worse state. Can it come back? Absolutely. I learned to never say never. A couple of years ago, I thought that Nickelodeon was going to be awful forever. Desperately searching for the next SpongeBob until SpongeBob was the poison that killed it. But then, they got the Loud House, Miraculous Ladybug. SpongeBob actually got good again, with episodes like Mimic Madness that do line up well with the original 3 seasons. And they finally gave Fairly Odd Parents an end, which is unbelievable. And they even went to starting making revival movies like the Hey Arnold movie, something that I never expected. Nickelodeon is far from perfect. I don't think any of these networks are ever going to get quote-unquote perfect. They're always going to have some network bullshit or some corporate culture that harms the overall artistic or entertainment merits of the product. But that doesn't mean that they have to be absolutely awful. It is possible to improve. It is always possible to improve. Cartoon Network did it once before, just 7 years ago. My God, that was 7 years ago. They can do it again. I have a dream that both Cartoon Network and Nickelodeon can be competent at the same time. But Cartoon Network needs to start seeing the forest for the trees. These endless, nothing but airings of Teen Titans Go and shunning everything else, that'll give them profit in the short run. But it's not going to last forever. If they keep rushing Teen Titans Go out, the show is going to get worse, and even its die-hard fans are going to abandon it at some point. Whatever it has something, and that thing can't be kept forever. Ed, Edd and Eddy, Dexter's Lab, Johnny Bravo, Courage, Samurai Jack, the original Powerpuff Girls, while many of them did have toy lines, they weren't originally made to sell toys. They were originally made to be cartoons, and as such, they're all beloved classics. And guess what? They made money. They made enough money to keep the network alive. Hell, they made enough money to make the network thrive. I want to answer the question that I posed in the beginning. What happened to Cartoon Network? What happened to them is the same exact thing that happened last time Cartoon Network found itself in the dumps. Back then, they started airing live-action shows that no one liked and no one wanted to see on the Cartoon Network. What had happened, and what has happened this time, is that Cartoon Network has lost faith in cartoons. And as long as the Cartoon Network holds that philosophy, they will never succeed. And that's just about all I have to say on the matter. This was a depressing episode.